We'll begin this morning, as always, back in New York at the news desk with John Palmer. Good morning, John.
Brian, Jane, good morning. In the news this morning, in South Korea, more than 30 students have stormed and have occupied the U.S. Information Service office in Seoul. U.S. officials were allowed to evacuate the building. There have been no injuries and no hostages have been taken. The students are protesting U.S. support for South Korean President Chung Doo-hwan. Riot police have surrounded the building at last word. The students were demanding to meet with the U.S. ambassador. Egypt's Middle East news agency reports this morning that Egyptian security forces have foiled a foreign terrorist attempt to plant bombs in an area where the American, British, and other embassies are located in Cairo. On Wednesday, Egyptian security police sealed off the U.S. embassy in what embassy sources and foreign ministry officials described as merely a security drill. In Beirut this morning, rescue workers are continuing to search through the debris from Wednesday's car bomb explosion in the Christian sector of the city. 34 people, many of them children, are known dead, another 24 missing and presumed dead. Schools and businesses in the Christian areas closed today in mourning for the dead. Meanwhile, Shiite Muslim militiamen this morning overwhelmed 2 Palestinian refugee camps, rounding up hundreds of men as women and children fled the onslaught. One report says 70 Palestinians in a hospital in one of the camps were arrested and then later killed. In Massachusetts, a wife has asked the courts for permission to allow her husband to die. Fred Briggs has that story.
I consider my husband terminally ill. The hospital doesn't.
Patricia Brophy, mother of 5, for more than 20 years, wife to Paul Brophy. She asked the court to make a hospital end her husband's life. Brophy was a firefighter. 2 years ago, following a brain operation, he went into a coma. After visiting him some months, his wife and family felt he didn't know them, and they didn't know him.
My husband is not the man I married. In essence, I believe his life is over.
Last year, the hospital agreed to a no resuscitation order signed by Mrs. Brophy. That means if her husband's heart were to stop, no effort would be made to revive him. She then asked the hospital to withdraw the tubes that fed nutrients and fluids to his stomach. There, the hospital drew the line. In court, a neurologist showed some CAT scan pictures of Paul's brain. Then, on cross-examination...
Is Paul Brophy brain dead, doctor? No.
Are you returning, Deputy?
Brophy's friends in the fire department remember how he felt rescuing critically wounded victims. He had said that he never wanted to be kept alive on machines.
Have you, in effect, yourself written him off?
Yes.
The hospital's point of view is clear.
We think it's contrary to our moral and ethical precepts that govern the hospital.
Members of the family have precepts too, and they believe they are doing what Paul Brophy wanted them to do. Fred Briggs, NBC News, Dedham, Massachusetts.
In California, those 6 little babies born to the Frustacci family on Tuesday are still holding their own this morning despite heart and lung problems. Dan Blackburn reports.
A brain scan of all 6 of the surviving infants turned up no sign of any abnormalities, a development that clearly pleased the doctors. But the tiny babies still are in a life and death struggle, with complications stemming from being both so premature and so small. The smallest, in fact, now has lost weight and weighs only a pound. All suffer from hyaline membrane disease and from a faulty arterial valve which does not close properly and lets too much blood into the infant's lungs. They are being given medication to correct that. Dr. Carrie Wooster, who is supervising the baby's care, sought to put the overall picture in perspective.
We still feel optimistic about the survival of all of these babies. Don't get me wrong, please. They're holding their own, they're active, these babies are moving, they're breathing on their own, they're very much with the program, they're fighters, as I said earlier. There are no impending deaths at this time, but they are critically ill.
Meanwhile, a trust fund has been set up, complete with a post office box, to help the family meet expected costs. And at the family's home, the baby's father, Sam Frustacci, was greeted by neighbors who put celebratory signs in the yard. He said he'll be glad when his wife comes home next week.
Her husband needs her at home.
Yes.
Gotta cut the backyard. No.
Dan Blackburn, NBC News, Orange, California.
Mother Teresa, Frank Sinatra, and Jimmy Stewart are among 13 prominent people to be presented with the Presidential Medal of Freedom today in a White House ceremony. That's the nation's highest civilian award. Moving up now on 7 minutes after the hour, back to Indianapolis and Brian Campbell.